everybody to the Single and Stiletto Show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a matchmaker and dating coach at Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I'm also the founder of Single and Stilettos. Today we have on our show Duana Welch, and she's the author of Love Factually, 10 Proven Steps from I Wish to I Do. And I'm so excited to have her here today because today we're talking about, ladies, get ready, how to quickly tell which men are cheaters. And I know all of you are dying to know the signs, and she's going to tell you the 5 telltale signs. But before she does, Duana, I would love for you to tell our audience about how you came up with this book and, and what it's based on, because I know the women are wondering, what is Love Factually?
Well, I am a science geek, but I'm also, first and foremost, a woman who really wants love in my life. Mm-hmm. And I went for love like it was a part-time job. This was something I was going to get it right. And then even though I had a PhD, I kept screwing up. And I thought, my area of research isn't actually love, but there's bound to be some nerd who does this. And it turns out there are a lot of nerds who do this. So what I did is I learned all about their research. I applied it to my life, and I found my happily ever after. In the meantime, I started a blog, and other people started coming to me for information, and that turned into my book. So Love Factually it is.
Awesome. Well, okay, so let's jump into this topic because I know the ladies are dying to hear the first sign of how to tell if a man is a cheater.
Okay, well, have I got news for you? First of all, most men aren't. That's a big thing for you to take home, is most men are good, decent men who will not cheat on you. A second thing, and this one's kind of scary, is the men who are cheaters, they cheat whether or not they're happy in your relationship. So if you're in a relationship with them, that does not mean a thing. So let's talk about who these 5 guys are. I'm going to start with the kind of guy, number 1, I call him Mr. History. Women, you all have a crystal ball. You all can tell what a man's going to do in the future. It's what he did in the past. This is the only law of psychology. Really and truly, we know in psychology that the single best way to tell what somebody is going to do is what they already did in a past similar situation. So, in those early conversations, ask men, so if your ex were here with us, and I said, why did your relationship end? What would she say? There are a lot of guys who'll say, well, she would say that I cheated and so she ended it. And I'm telling you, women, you need to find somebody else. I'm sorry. So that's number 1.
Let me ask you a question, because I've heard different things about this, and I'll tell you why. I've interviewed other, actually men, who have been cheaters, and they said that they changed, and that you can change, but you only change for the right woman. And so, and you're saying something different, where they should find somebody else, and that because of their past relationship patterns. So
Suzanne, that is a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. I'll tell you the men that will change.
Okay.
The guy who changes is the one who cheated once, not a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. He felt really, really guilty, and he was upset. He ended the affair, and he castigated himself about this. Right. And he never did it again. So if you want to take that risk, you're looking at a man who has very limited affair history, and he felt bad. He ended it. He never did it again, and it's been a good long while, and he has had other relationships where he did not cheat. I can give the green light there.
Okay. So what's another sign that a man is a cheater?
I call him Mr. All That.
What does that mean?
Mr. All That, maybe he owns a Learjet, and he has he's like the 50 Shades of Grey guy, right? Mm-hmm.
So he pretty much has everything and anything, and
yes.
He can get anything at his beck and call, literally.
Yes, and it turns out that the single biggest predictor of whether a man will cheat or not is opportunity, and Mr. All That is just flooded with opportunity.
Okay.
Women actually offer him sex, and men just aren't biologically wired, by and large, to just say no every single day to women who offer them sex. So, there are women, obviously, who are married to those guys, often not for very long, and often they're not married for very long because the guys cheat. But if you can take that kind of heat and be with a guy like that, great. You need to understand this is a huge affair risk. It's the biggest one there is.
It's really interesting because I was out the other night with my girlfriend and we met this guy at a bar, and he was actually a well-known actor. And of course, I'm not going to say who he was. But anyways, he said to us that women just will do anything. They throw themselves at him, and he's like, quite honestly, it's so easy to get whatever I want. He goes, in my 20s, women weren't that easy. He goes, women are so easy now.
Yes.
And so it's kind of sad. Ladies, don't do that. Okay, so what's another tip?
So the third kind of guy is what I call Mr. Experienced or Mr. Highly Experienced. These are guys who, to put a fine point on it, they've had sex with a lot of women. Sometimes they are Mr. Experienced, Mr. All That, and Mr. History. Sometimes we're talking about the same guy here. We're just using different labels.
Right.
But Mr. Experienced has a tremendous amount of sexual experience, and so that's just his MO. That's just normal to him, and he's just not used to having one woman. He's just not a one-woman kind of guy, or hasn't been. And again, history being the best predictor of what's going to happen in the future, it's just not a great bet. You could date that guy. I'm not saying it's going to fail. I'm just saying the odds aren't on your side.
Right, and I want to bring up a point because I see this a lot with, as a matchmaker and dating coach, is that I'll talk to a lot of women, and you bring up a great point about finding out about past relationship history, and I think that's very, very key because I actually have made this mistake in the past too, where I was dating a guy and I said, oh, I don't care about your past relationship history. All I care about is that you're with me now. That was a huge mistake because his patterns were that he would break up, get back together, break up, get back together. And he is, of course, I was no exception. But the thing is that, like you were saying, is whether he's a serial cheater from the past, or here's another one that I see a lot, and this is a big red flag. If he's in his late 30s and 40s or even 50s and has never had a real serious long-term relationship, or maybe has only had one and he's in his 40s or 50s, that's a huge red flag. Why has he only had one?
That can be. Interestingly, though, science finds that those 40-year-old virgin kind of guys, a lot of them actually make really great husbands.
Oh, they're not virgins.
And the ones I'm thinking of are, and or men who are very little experienced. Do they?
No, I don't mean inexperienced. This is what I'm talking about because I see this as a matchmaker. Is they're so picky and they keep trying to find the bigger, better deal that they never will settle down into a long-term relationship. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about inexperienced.
That sounds like a non-secure attachment style, which can be associated with affairs, but definitely is associated with he's going to break your heart, honey, run.
See, ladies, you got an extra tip here today. Okay, so do you have any other tips of?
I do. I've got two more. Do we have time for two more?
We do.
Okay, so really quickly, Mr. Globetrotter. This is a guy who travels a lot, usually in the company of beautiful women for business. There's a reason that we have a stereotype that men hire hookers and get some on the side at conferences. It's because a lot of men hire hookers and get some on the side at conferences.
Right.
So if a guy travels a lot for business, that's, again, it's not a slam dunk that he's going to cheat on you, but especially, ladies, if you've been really hurt in the past by someone who did cheat, you really want to minimize your risk of being with a cheater again. I would not choose that guy. And then the last guy is Mr. Personality. Now, I ended with this guy because this is what everyone thinks is the guy. They think that there are some guys who are just bad guys, who just cheat. And there are guys like that, but this is the least informative feature of who's going to cheat on you. And everybody thinks it's the most, like you could just tell a cheater by looking or something. Right. No, you can tell a cheater by history and travel and whether he's had affairs in the past and, if he's got status out the yin-yang and if he's got a lot of sexual experience. But as far as personality goes, here's what you don't want. You do not want a narcissist. Look it up if you don't know what a narcissist is. You don't want him. Even if he never cheated on you. Oh my God, what a horrible person. You don't want to be with that person. And then you also don't want somebody who just, maybe he's not quite a narcissist, but he just feels entitled to get some on the side. Like those old mob movies where the guys marry the sweet virginal girl, but they never even consider that they're going to give up their sex life that's recreational and extracurricular. You don't want those guys. And there are men who have those attitudes, and you need to ferret them out quickly by watching carefully how he talks about women and his past.
Right. And I liken that to women choosing men that, I hear this a lot, they like a guy with the edge. And I'm like, you don't need a guy with the edge. The guy with the edge is probably the guy like you're talking about that's the cheater. So,
I think it's easy to forget. Most of us are dating because we want to get into a permanent relationship. We either want a permanent mateship of some kind or we want a permanent marriage. The person who is a great marriage partner is usually not all that cool. He doesn't have that much edge, but he will be there for you through thick and thin. And keyword is for you, not for anybody else, just you. I've got that. I love it. My honey is not all that cool, but he is all that. I adore him. And I want the same thing for everybody who's watching this.
exactly. All right, ladies. Well, these have been some awesome tips. So, Duana, tell our audience how they can find you and where they can find your book.
I would love for you to look me up at www.lovefactually.co. Don't go to .com. It'll take you someplace weird. Go to lovefactually.co and you can get a free chapter of my book right there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us on the Single and Stiletto Show. If you like our show, it's available both in video format and podcast format. If you'd like to view the videos, you can go to singleandstilettos.com. And if you'd like to get the podcast, you can download it from iTunes. If you'd like to get our free ebook on the 3 secrets guaranteed to attract any man, and it's actually based on scientific research, you can click right here on the video, or you can go to singleandstilettos.com.